All right. Well, I'm here with my friend Jim. The word balance has been coming up a lot for me lately. In Scrum, we talk about balance between the different Scrum values. In EBM, evidence based management, we talk about the balance between the different key value areas. But Jim, I think you wanted to talk about balance from a Kanban perspective. So the Kanban guide tells us that we need to strike the right balance of effectiveness, efficiency, and predictability. It doesn't really tell us what the right balance is, but it does tell us we need to try and find the right balance, which is, I think, a very powerful nuance to that statement. I think, though, actually, maybe before we even jump into the conversation, do you want to maybe introduce yourself a little bit?
Sure. So my name is Jim Sparks. I've been a Scrum Master or Agile Coach, whatever you want to call it, on different variations of that for about 7 years now. And most recently been a pro Kanban trainer for the last almost a year, since September of last year. And I love everything about Kanban and flow metrics. I can talk about it for hours on end. So I bore people with that occasionally. But so doing that, I love it. Love everything about Agile. Kind of fell into it accidentally, and away I ran. So
Yeah. Yeah, that's how most people fall into it. I think it is kind of
yeah.
you trip over a rock, and the next thing you know, you're preaching Scrum and Kanban and all the good stuff.
Oh yeah.
Um, yeah, cool. So I think maybe before we can talk about the actual balance between those three things, it might be helpful to understand what the words mean specifically in a Kanban context, because a lot of people will use the words, especially like effective and efficient. They'll use those kind of interchangeably, but they do have kind of specific meaning. So maybe, Jim, you want to take a stab at defining those three words for us?
Absolutely. Before we jump into that, I think it's important for everyone to understand what flow really is. So flow is the movement of potential value through your system. It's real simple. It's just getting the value through your system. And since most workflows are wanting to optimize value, um, we use Kanban as a strategy to optimize the flow, um, optimize that value by optimizing the flow through your system. So, but optimization doesn't necessarily imply maximization. A lot of people will think that, oh, we're going to optimize it, we're going to maximize it, push everything to its absolute limits, and that's never any good. So, starting there is kind of where we get into the balance idea that we're talking about. So, an effective workflow is real simple. It's customers get what they want when they want it. An efficient workflow is you're using your available resources, you're using everything economic resources that you have available as optimally as possible in order to deliver the value. And being predictable, a predictable workflow means you can accurately forecast your value when you're going to deliver something with an acceptable degree of uncertainty. Real simple. And as you can see, there's similar, kind of related, but not the same.
Yeah, some like I said, some powerful kind of nuance in the difference between those things. So I think finding the right balance of these in any particular context can be kind of challenging because, like I said
Mhm.
before, there's no like one universal like this is the right way to set the dials when it comes to this stuff. I thought maybe it would be helpful though to talk about what teams and organizations might notice if they've kind of over-indexed or overemphasized any one of these, right? So maybe we can kind of go through those and maybe just kind of spitball, if you're focused a little bit too heavily on, let's start with effectiveness. If you're focused a bit too heavily on effectiveness, what might you notice? What might be some direct or maybe even like knock-on effects to that?
Uh, you want an effective team. Everyone wants an effective team. They want to deliver what the customer wants when they want it, and this can lead you down. If you focus mostly on being effective, it's going to lead you down a road where you're going to burn out your teams. They're going to be working too many hours. They're not going to be happy, so to speak. So, just if the most important thing is getting the customer what they want when they want it. Some of the other things, some of your other systems within the organization can fall by the wayside. If it's just about getting this widget out there now, your quality is gonna fall. You're not gonna maybe pay attention to security issues within your organization. Your tech debt's gonna creep up. All of those kind of things can happen, even though you may get the customer what they want when they want it.
Yeah, yeah, I think that makes sense. I think you'd also maybe see You might have to sacrifice a bit of efficiency in the name of effectiveness sometimes, right? You want to get things to the customer, the right thing to the right customer at the right time. You may spend a little bit more time than you should trying to figure out exactly what is the right thing, and kind of overanalyzing, and kind of doing it that way.
Well, and
Um,
that kind of leads into the efficient part of it because you're wanting to use your economic resources. And while I hate, using the term resource for human beings, they are technically an economic resource you have at your disposal. And optimally, as we said, doesn't mean maximization. So you're not pushing your humans to work more and more and more and do more and more and more to get it out there. That's not optimally. Um, so pushing them to go beyond what is optimal for them and a sustainable balance is never good either. So,
yeah, yeah, one of those deals where it may work for a little while,
mhm,
and it may make you feel like you're being very efficient and effective, and pretty
yep,
soon you will be neither. And you'll
absolutely.
also probably lose any sense of predictability at the same time too. So really easy for things to kind of derail that way. What
Mhm.
about the predictability side? What if you're just like, I want to be able to hit dates and give 100%, probability of when we're going to deliver something? What could happen if we try to do that?
Again, you lead into pushing your humans beyond what they're really sustainably capable of. You put quality at risk. If we're going to hit this date, there's going to be times when your quality is going to really drop because it's just get it out there now. We'll worry about fixing it later. So you introduce bugs into the system, potentially catastrophic level because if you break down an entire system or entire application because you had to get it out there in just the right amount of time. You can damage reputation because now that trust between you and your customer is no longer there because you had to be predictable. You had to hit that date. So other things fell by the wayside. And if you're focusing too much on that, you're going to put yourself at a lot of risk as far as that goes as well.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah, predictability is kind of an interesting one. It's a little bit squishy, and it's a little bit of
Mhm.
like kind of choose your own adventure, and that sort of thing. So maybe we could veer the conversation that way a little bit in terms of
Mhm.
predictability. And I guess maybe the question is, what might be an acceptable degree of uncertainty, which is what we mean when we're talking about predictability, in
Mhm.
certain different contexts, right? Like for example, like a highly regulated environment, or name a different one. Is there sort of a kind of gauge on how much predictability do we actually need based on our context?
Well, and honestly, the acceptable degree, of uncertainty, or how much risk are you willing to accept, is really what you're asking.
Yeah.
And this is going to sound like a cop out answer, but it really depends because you have a different environment. So let's say you have an event app, you have to give it out there by a certain time because the event's coming, and if you don't get it out by a certain date, it's for naught. So that is important. But if you go to your team as a project manager or a product manager and they give you, say, a 50-50 shot of hitting that date, are you willing to accept a 50% risk that you're not going to hit that date? Maybe, maybe not. Probably not. Most times not. But if you're in an organization where this team is integral to the, the keeping the lights on in the organization, they're also wrapped up in the security of the organization. There's going to be more risk because if something comes in one day, someone hacks a system and they have to pivot their attention, you're going to put that event app at risk. So is it worth the risk? That's a decision that you have to make as a product manager. Or if you are, in a regulated environment and you have to have something out by a certain time frame, you want a lower risk. So say an 85% confidence level that you're going to hit it by that date. And you're going to really need to work on other things. If you look at your empirical evidence and you see how the team has been working, you can decide, okay, well, that 15% risk of hitting this date is not it's not good enough. I need 5%. Give me a 95% confidence. Well, then we need to ask the questions: how can we reduce the risk? What can we do to help the team so that they can raise their confidence, so they can reduce their risk, so they can get closer to hitting that date for you?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's very true. I think if you're doing things right, we're talking about Kanban here. So if you're doing the
Right.
Kanban thing right, the idea is you want to be able to detect that sooner rather than later, so that you can take action. right? If
Hmm.
it if the number comes back as like, yeah, like you said, 50-50 shot that we're going to hit, shipping this event app before the event actually happens, I would like to know about that sooner rather than later, so we can probably be flexible on scope, or do what we've got to do to try to mitigate that. So you need to have that sort of transparency in place to be able to see that.
Absolutely. And ultimately, it boils down to, having the opportunity to ask the questions and have those conversations sooner. So you realize a 50% chance of not making it. What can we do? What is in the way? Where are the risks? And as you said, sooner rather than later.
Yeah. So would it be fair to kind of maybe sum this all up and say something like, um, having the right balance of effectiveness, efficiency, and predictability should lead to better discussions, better decisions sooner?
Yes, absolutely. That's a great way to put it.
Cool. Well, maybe we'll just leave it right there then. How does that sound?
I'm good with that.
Cool. Jim, if people want to find you or get in touch with you, what's a good way to find you on the internets?
Go to prokanban.org. It's typically where I spend most of my time. You can find me there. You can find me in their Slack channel. I'm in there all the time. When you go in there, search for me on trainers, you'll see the classes that I have available, and you can hit me up there. Or if you want to hit me at an email, it's jim@jimsparks.co. If you want to hit me up on an email for any reason.
Cool. Easy
Not
enough.
got not .com. That M's worth like $300,000, so it's
Yeah.
.co.
Same here. I'm impactagility.co, not com. Didn't
Mm-hmm.
want to fork over the money for that extra
Oh
extra
yeah.
letter. Awesome. Cool. Well, thanks, Jim. We'll do this again sometime.
Appreciate your time. Have a great day.